Shaye St. John.
Do you have a lot of friends? Why don't you have a lot of friends?
I don't know.
Holy tragedy.
You need long-term treatment.
Welcome to my luscious DVD.
Let's asbestos.
Welcome to my DVD. Welcome to my DVD. Welcome to my DVD. Welcome to my DVD.
Threw buckets of feces on her.
You know and I know that I've had a nervous breakdown, right? You've been burnt in a fire.
Welcome to my DVD.
Drenched her with buckets full of human waste.
She hated her eyes, she hated her face, she hated her body so much.
Many have likened the early days of the internet to a sort of digital Wild West. You didn't quite know what to expect when you logged in on your dial-up server at any given time. Things were new, exciting, and most importantly, untested. Back then, it was very possible to be shocked, awestruck, and amazed at the things that were presented. Now, not necessarily because they had never been seen before, but because they had never been seen in this kind of medium. The internet was a vast frontier where anything seemed possible. Sharp political commentary, side-splitting humor, the new genre of the daily vlogger, and yes, the dark and the macabre all burst onto the scene like never before. It is in the latter arena in which we'll be diving into tonight. One of the godfathers, or in this case, the godmothers of all things weird and creepy. Ladies and gentlemen, we present to you the odd and unnerving world of Shaye St. John.
Her name is Shaye St. John. Her occupation, former fashion model and high-grade influencer. But as you might have noticed, there is something very wrong with our subject. If you haven't put it together, Shaye is half mannequin. Her arms, her legs, and most of her face have been replaced with synthetic plastic. However, she's living in a world where she thinks she's still the toast of the fashion world, her prosthetics, somehow more beautiful than the flesh and blood limbs they replaced. The thing about it is, folks, is that Shaye wants you to believe she's still as vibrant and attractive as she was before her horrific accident. So what exactly is going on here? Let's try to unpack this bizarre anomaly. The story of Shaye St. John begins with this man, one Eric Fournier. Born on September 2nd, 1969, young Eric was brought up in the moderate city of Bloomington, Indiana. Oddly enough, most of Eric's younger years are shrouded in mystery. There are differing stories as to the atmosphere of his home life and even what type of family he was a part of. What is known is that for most of Eric's formative years, he had the drive to create. Growing up, he struggled to put his ideas and thoughts into a medium that he thought best represented what he had in his head. Fast forward to the late 1980s, and Eric had grown up to be an adventurous and meaning-seeking young man in his 20s. Eric was traveling back and forth from the city of Los Angeles, where he acted as a trend reporter. At the time, Eric had been a part of two metal punk bands named the Blood Farmers and Skelegore, respectively. During his time as part of both bands, Eric was harboring a pair of deep-seated issues that he had been grappling with for some time. Eric was not one to actively seek out the limelight, and according to many of his bandmates, seemed noticeably uncomfortable playing or singing on stage. Whether it was a self-esteem problem or just stage fright is debated. The other and more ominous of Eric's personal demons was his growing addiction to alcohol. Now again, whether or not his friends were aware of his struggle with alcoholism has never been made clear. Now, along with his music, Eric had another abiding interest, namely filmmaking. The young man had always had a distinctive creative streak, and along with his music, he desired to bring one of his aforementioned creations to life via a film screen. Mulling over ideas he had since he was a child, Eric developed the character of Shaye St. John sometime in the late 90s. According to some sources, Eric wanted to create both a tragic and comedic character, which he felt best represented two major sides of his own life. In the official rendering of Shaye St. John, it is explained that she was once a beautiful woman who had been a big deal in the fashion and modeling world. She suffered through a horrific accident in which she was hit by a careening train. As a result, she lost both of her arms and legs, as well as her face being horribly scarred. Being an amputee as she was, Shaye decided to replace her lost limbs with mannequin parts. To hide her mutilated face, she takes to wearing a mask fashioned from a storefront display dummy. It is also explained that while recuperating in the hospital, Shaye was subjected to various mind-altering experiments from those that staffed the hospital. With the backdrop for his character set in place, Eric began to film a series of short videos that portrayed Shaye St. John in a variety of weird, zany, and disturbing montages. Wanting to be different and set his art apart from those in the contemporary film world, Eric referred to his videos as, quote, triggers. Sometime in the early 2000s, Eric began to upload his so-called triggers to an early social media website known as LiveJournal. The website was developed in Russia and acted as a networking medium where users would upload and blog on just about any topic under the sun. Not gaining much traction at first, the Shaye St. John videos caught the attention of a man named Carl Crew. Mr. Crew owned a Hollywood nightclub and art gallery he called the California Institute of Abnormal Arts. Carl was fascinated by the collection of odd and off-putting videos. In fact, he was so taken by the weird triggers, Carl made it a point to contact Eric directly. Before too long, the pair struck up a correspondence, and after about a month or so, decided to meet up for possible collaboration. The two worked so well together that they immediately started a lifelong friend and partnership. It was because of Carl's influence that Eric began to churn out even more Shaye St. John content than he ever had before. But along with the new creative partnership, Carl would also add a strange dynamic to the world of Shaye St. John. Carl has routinely commented that he viewed Shaye and Eric as two separate people. He said that whenever they were on set filming, that both addressed him as two completely separate entities. Carl has been questioned many times on what exactly he meant by these comments, but he has always remained vague. Some speculate that Eric was suffering from a split personality, possibly brought on by his alcoholism. However, others think that Carl was simply playing into his friend's immersive atmosphere in a prolonged role-play of sorts. Since Eric viewed Shaye as wholly another person, Carl went along with it out of respect for his friend. Is this disturbing or commendable? Well, perhaps it's a little of both. Now we come to the infamous Shaye St. John website. Wanting to expand beyond just the video content, Eric creates ShayeSt.John.net. The best way we've heard the website described was as a digital prolonged acid trip. The site is a veritable rabbit hole of disturbing and trippy content that could carry as many meanings as the amount of hair on one's head. You could spend literal hours exploring the site and still only scratch the surface on the plethora of hidden links, side scroll bars, and trap tangents there was to encounter. The website was taken down sometime in early 2009, its full meaning or purpose never revealed. Not satisfied with just uploading their videos to LiveJournal or the Shaye St. John website, Carl and Eric decided to try and seek a wider audience by showing one of the Shaye St. John triggers at a theater in Los Angeles in early 2002. Needless to say, the reception wasn't what the pair were hoping for. Audiences were in a state of shock and didn't know what to make of the disturbing woman who seemed to be part mannequin. Shaye was so frightening to some that it resulted in both Eric and Carl being banned from the Newark Theater. After the fiasco at the Newark Theater, Carl and Eric were feeling despondent, but refused to give up on the character that both had poured so much time and resources into. They kept on filming their videos until they discovered a brand new website that had sprouted onto the scene. Back then, YouTube was an untested and unproven video sharing platform, far from the social media juggernaut it is today. On August 30th, 2006, Eric Fournier created the original Shaye St. John YouTube channel, and it is here where Shaye would find her wider audience. For 2 more years, the videos continued unabated until mid-2008, when Eric would join forces with an eccentric filmmaker named Larry Wessel. Much like Carl, Larry was fascinated with the concept of Shaye St. John and eventually produced a full-length documentary on Eric Fournier and his creation of Shaye. To Larry, Eric's videos represented a freedom from mainstream and a liberation of restraint that permeated Hollywood. However, looming just under the surface was the unrestrained demon of Eric's most formidable addiction, his alcoholism. Whether or not Eric realized just how serious his problem was may never be known, as the details concerning his battle with this particular addiction are scarce. What we do know for sure was that Eric sadly lost this battle on February 25, 2010, never knowing the extent or impact he had on the wider internet community. Up until this point, we've covered the history of Eric Fournier, but what of the content output of Shaye St. John herself? What kind of meaning, if any at all, was to be taken from this very unusual art project? As usual, all this is up to interpretation, and the supposed hidden meaning behind Eric's art is a hotly debated subject amongst internet archivers. One prevalent theory on the hidden meaning of Shaye St. John is the theme of abuse within the Hollywood system, that Shaye and other characters presented in the video triggers represent the shallow and vapid personalities that flood Tinseltown. Shaye being an embodiment of the obtuse fakery that people disguise themselves in throughout their search of fame and fortune.
But of course, we here at Penalty of Death have our own theories. Now, personally, I think that the character of Shaye St. John represents Fournier himself. I think that Shaye's deformity represents Eric first discovering his battle with alcohol. Her need to put on a front of beauty was a way for Eric to tell us of his own struggles to get through everyday life with his addiction hanging over his head. The bizarreness of the Shaye character could be a representation that Eric didn't feel successful at portraying a facade of normalcy around either his friends or his family. Now, in addition, there is a character within the series named Kiki. Kiki is a burnt porcelain doll that is shown to have superpowers that manifest at will. Again, I think that Kiki represents his alcohol addiction. The mannequin parts of Shaye is the alcoholism when he first started drinking. Now, Kiki the doll is his alcoholism that has spiraled way out of control. There are even a few videos in which Shaye chides Kiki for using her powers and that she thought they were evil in nature. This could be Eric trying to tell us that his addiction exuded such a chokehold over him that it felt as if it held unnatural powers that caused him to think and do evil things. But again, this is just my theory. You're more than free to come up with a few of your own. So at the end of this bizarre journey, what are we to take from all this? Was Shaye St. John a weird trip of disturbing videos that were trying to tell a deeper story? Was Shaye just a collection of wacky, absurdist comedy that went awry of some people's tastes? Well, on an individual level, I think if we delve too deeply into trying to find these very answers, we may indeed be missing the entire point. Perhaps there is a deeper meaning, or maybe it was just an eccentric take on comedy, but I firmly believe that we shouldn't miss what Eric Fournier had originally intended when he first shared Shaye St. John with the world. That is an expression of individualistic art that provokes a million different thoughts in a million different people, to stoke a conversation that we might not have otherwise engaged in. After all, isn't that the true purpose of all art forms, whether it be in the form of a film, a paintbrush, a microphone, or yes, even a deformed woman with mannequin parts for legs and arms? He got us to talk about her, and at the end of the day, that is the greatest accomplishment of all artists, to get their creations to have a firm place within our own subconscious. Well, that, and of course to live by the mantra: question everything and trust no one. Until next time.
Shaye? Are you still doing that hand thing? I heard you're doing the hand thing today. God, what is that?